Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to a very important esports issue being brought up in recent light both by Trump as well as other politicians and mainstream media folk trying to blame the esports industry, the gaming industry, for a correlation supposedly made up out there between violent video games and violent people. More importantly, of course, the increase of mass shootings, at least here in America, although we'll talk about, other countries, how that seems to be a lack of correlation there, and of course a lack of overall research done on one side of this argument, that being, do violent video games also lead to mass shootings or shootings in real life? Now, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm sure many of us are not, but I think it's a great time to actually bring this to debate as we have people like Trump alongside other politicians talking about this. It does not present a good light to the esports industry or a very fair light, especially when you take into account the lack of research for their argument that there is a correlation. So first of all, here's what Trump had to say recently about violent video games and what they lead to.
Second, we must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence.
But he's not the only one. Other politicians also taking their note on mainstream media to talk about this, even referencing games like Fortnite and the violence that apparently is involved in that game. Imagine a world where people are thinking Fortnite is looking like a violent game compared to others out there. And just because, of course, it's a mainstream title right now, it is the biggest video game in the world, that it seems to be a reference point for a lot of politicians out there.
It's an evil act, and let's condemn it for what it is. Evil. Evil. And I say, how long are we going to let, for example, and ignore at the federal level particularly, where they can do something about the video game industry? In this manifesto that we believe is from the shooter, this manifesto, he talks about living out his super soldier fantasy on Call of Duty. We know that the video game industry is bigger than the movie industry and the music industry combined. And there have been studies that say it impacts people and studies that says it does not. But I look at the common denominators as a 60-some-year-old father and grandfather myself. What's changed in this country? We've always had guns. We've always had evil. But what's changed where we see this rash of shooting? And I see a video game industry that teaches young people to kill.
And like I said previously, this brings up a great time and an open debate for all of you guys in the comment section, and I will also keep addressing those comments. If you guys can find me a study with a sufficient amount of research done for a correlation of violent video games to shootings here in America or anywhere around the world, please do me a favor, hit me up on my Twitter DMs or of course in the comment section down below, because I have failed to find those studies. I did a college speech on this exact topic. That does not make me an expert by a long shot, and again, I am an esports channel, I'm a gaming channel, so I do have that bias of wanting to defend our industry, like I think a lot of you guys will. On top of that, this overall debate of if there is a correlation or not between violent video games and violent people has been, persuaded in the opposite direction for quite some time now. I have found a lot of studies out there which do actually either deny the connection of those two things, or they go in fact and say there is no correlation whatsoever between violent video games and violent people. And especially when it comes down to the very valid argument right now, when we look at over the past few weeks, and of course especially most recently, shootings in El Paso, shootings in Ohio, where dozens of people are injured or killed, it's a very important thing to not present this in an unfair light to an industry that you are going to blame. And a lot of these studies out there just deny the correlation in general that violent video games lead to people shooting other people in real life. I think you'll have a tough time actually finding that research, but even if you don't, I think it's a great time for this to be brought up into point, and so other research studies out there can be started to try and find even if there is a correlation. But at this point in time, there is not any sufficient research, and again, if I am wrong, please correct me in the comment section down below, that does say there is a correlation. But this should be expected, right? Fortnite is blowing up all over mainstream media, bringing more eyes and light, not only to video games, but of course esports, the large prize pools, and of course the potential issues with the industry in general. I just wish for a more fair light about this. All these politicians, it's also tough to take into effect. They have these agendas, right? They have these big topics that, of course, if you, take your stance on them strongly, you're going to gain some traction with voters out there. And obviously shootings are a very big issue, especially here in America. So it makes sense now is a good time to talk about this issue, and I hope it brings more light on these research studies so more can actually be found out about this, because if it is an issue, which I do not think it is, I have my stance on that, but if it is an issue, we can certainly find more about this and hopefully shed some more light on it. Now, thanks to Slasher as well, apparently going on live news sometime today, so I'll be covering the responses to that story, both on Twitter as well as comment section through here, and hopefully more can actually be brought to the forefront of this argument argument of, do violent video games actually lead to violent people or people shooting other people in real life? You guys can state your, of course, opinions down below. I will definitely read through the comment section today. I just never like when, as an industry together, we are painted in an unfair light without any backing, without any research really being done about this. You have people out there saying that it's video games, guys. I know it because, every kid these days, they play video games, so that must be the issue of why there are more shootings. I think one of the main facts that I stand against this are because, yes, in America, we do have a flooded increase of shootings. It's terrible. The number of them have been drastically increased over the last couple of years. But with that being said, video games are a worldwide affair. Everyone and their grandma has been, absorbing video games, especially over the past 3 to 5 years. The rise of video games has not just been in America, it's been in every country across the entire world. So where are their increase in shootings? I just don't think video games are the issue. I think there's a wide array, a variety of issues for this being the cause that are also needing to be addressed. And if video games are part of the issue, even if they are, I do believe they're going to be way, way down there on a list of other things that could be fixed. But I will admit, if they are an issue, if we actually find some research which shows they are a very big issue and leading to these big events, which are terrible events, then yes, let's fix it. But there are also, let's not deny it, there must be a wide variety of things out there and issues out there that are a cause of what is going on here in America and across very, very few select other areas in the world. That's the main point I stand on. Hopefully more will be shed on this sometime soon in the future. You guys can leave your thoughts and comments down below. I will greatly read through all of them. As always, my name is Jake, breaking down esports news here daily on Esports Talk. Until next time, guys, keep it together. I'll see you soon.